ladies and gentlemen, and all, including all the speakers. It's a very good evening to you from all of us here, the organizers. I'm Dr. Suhail Chughtai, and I welcome you on behalf of TVapex, who are the collaborate organizers with GlobalNet 21 of this event. The topic of this seminar, this brief seminar, is Muslim women empowerment in UK. The emphasis is in UK. And the question is, do you get equal opportunities in this society to go up? And that is the main essence of the discussion. The equal opportunities we mean by grassroots levels, where there is neighbor interaction, there is peer-to-peer support, there is a colleague reaction, there is a street chant, there is people watching you and reacting to you, up to the legislative fabric of the very society and the national law. Does it support you? Does it take you up? Does it pull you down? That is where we would learn so much from your questions, from the learning speakers sitting here. I mean, we have so many wonderful names in the history, apart from the powerful ladies sitting on right and left. We're a bit sandwiched, weak men are sandwiched in very powerful ladies today. We have, finance, banking, very difficult, but ladies, Muslim ladies in UK have flourished up. Fahmida, banking partner of a large legal firm, and then Professor Farida is actually the Dean of the Dentistry of Queen College of Medicine and Surgery, and she's a very high name in the field of medicine. We have Mishal Hussain, you know, the BBC presenter. She's a Muslim woman going up in that industry. Salma B, she was the first female county cricketer from Birmingham. So they're Muslim names going up in the history. And then we have, of course, political field. That's where the Muslim women have really flourished. And the three Muslim MPs, I mean, one of them we have privilege of having us here, Yasmin Qureshi from Bolton. Southeast Bolton. And then from Birmingham, we have Shabana Mahmood. And then we have Roshanara Ali from Bethnal Green. And then let's not forget, from Bradford City, we have the Lord Mayor, Mrs. Navida Ikram. But the B is common: Bradford, Bethnal Green, Bolton, and Birmingham. So B means the brave-hearted ladies. That's why it's B. So B stands for something. And I think I hand over this forum to my colleague, Francis Seeley. He runs an organization called GlobalNet 21, which is a social organization. Many seminars. I've seen your Facebook so busy. So many organizations are attaching to him because of his wide network. He works with MPs, local councillors, and his slogan is, "We celebrate diversity." And I love this slogan because that's what TVapex is doing as well. So that's where we are together, and I think he's got so many credentials to his credit, but I want him to start the seminar for me. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Okay, well, I'd like to welcome you all here this evening, and it's a great turnout. And Sahel talked about these wonderful women to his right and his left. Well, my name's Francis. It's a female name, so maybe I can join the club, so it'll be okay. This meeting began when we had a discussion at Waltham Forest between Shaheen and between Sahel. Sahel, by the way, is, as he told you, from TVapex. He's an orthopedic surgeon. He's certified to a Microsoft certified practitioner, which led him to look at how the internet could be used to build bridges, which led him to lead into TVapex and using internet TV to get messages across to build bridges. And at a meeting we talked about some of the misunderstandings that take place in Western society about what women's empowerment means when they come from different cultures. I just had a debate with an old BBC colleague of mine from old days about the veil and the burqa, and I suddenly realised that there is a huge amount of misunderstanding. To understand that, there is a lot of empowerment amongst women from all cultures, but they express it in different ways, is really, really important to understand if you're going to have a really multicultural society. So we're really pleased that Yasmin Qureshi has agreed today to host this meeting and to speak at it. Sahel's introduced introduced her, and she's already done one meeting with us on restorative justice, which was really, really good. And then we've got, you know, 3 other speakers. Shaheen Chowdhury, who is the first woman to ever have a position like the High Sheriff of Bristol. Also a doctor of politics and social policy, which is really great. Rabia, she's the youngest elected Muslim woman politician in the country. And then Bashan, who comes from the All Women's Pakistani organisation in the UK, is going to speak as well. And I think it should be a fabulous evening. So, Yasmin, thank you. And I know you have to go because there's another meeting, so over to you.
So it's lovely to have an audience of actually predominantly just women. And the reason I say that is because I think women understand each other actually a lot better than perhaps even men understand each other. And I think, and particularly understanding women, that's a completely different ballgame. But also because, the reason I say it because I think a lot of us have very common challenges. And in that respect, I would say whether you're a Muslim woman, a Hindu woman, a Jewish woman, an English woman, any woman, right, we all seem to have particular challenges which are fairly, you could say, unique to ourselves. Or maybe not so unique because they've been there since, you know, time immemorial. And that is that despite the age of equality and despite the fact that we have laws in this country which in theory make us all equal irrespective of race, gender, creed, colour, culture, we know though that there are still challenges within each and every profession, and irrespective of which country, community, culture, religion you are, the challenges actually facing women are very similar. And those challenges are women are still very much, in most cases, the child rearers, the ones who bring the family together, who still do most of the cooking and cleaning in their homes, unless of course they can afford outside help, which is easy. They may be working, but at the same time carrying on all those wives and, you know, mothers and sisters. And when it comes to even caring abilities, mostly women are still the carers of their elderly relatives, their parents, etc. And that is actually across all different groups of people. It's not just limited to the Asian women or African women. It's actually the same applies to European women. So with all that huge challenges, and of course, even across all groups and different backgrounds, the issue about sometimes women having challenges of whether they should study, going to universities, have professional jobs or not jobs, it's still a bit of a challenge for them. And I say this in a kind of just setting the store because I think nobody can say everything is perfect out there and it's all hunky-dory for women and it's all straightforward process and, you know, everybody will. But what is amazing that despite all these obstacles and challenges that exist, surprising how many women are actually succeeding so brilliantly in each of their chosen fields. And now I'm going to address my comments obviously to mostly about Muslim women because they are the one group of women who, in this country, the image is that we're all repressed, that we're all subjugated, that we all follow 10 steps behind our husbands or brothers and fathers, and that somehow, you know, nobody wants us to educate, nobody wants us to work, no one wants to do it. Now, that is not to say that there may be some people with some traditional kind of old-fashioned cultural values who may have some of these issues, but that's actually not the normal picture, actually. I mean, in the media, the often portrayal of women is always, you know, whenever they talk about Muslim women, have you noticed that it's always the one who's fully dressed in niqab, jibab, etc. They never seem to show a picture often of a Muslim woman who's dressed perhaps like most women here who are dressed. And so, you know, the image is, oh my God, it's a Muslim woman in a black niqab, jibab, being oppressed, etc. But we know that's not the truth, that's not the reality. We know that in the same household where one woman might be wearing a niqab, the other might be wearing just a headscarf, and so one who'll wear neither headscarf nor niqab. And in the same family, you can have different variations and patterns. So, you know, that shows that actually, you know, majority of women, or like 99.9% of women, are choosing to wear the hijab or headscarves or whatever they want to. I'll give you a personal example of my friends who I started off together with. And some of them, are, at least 3 of them, very good friends, are wearing a headscarf now. Certainly nobody, for them, they are women who are leading in their professions. 2 of them are consultant doctors. The others is a lawyer, and you know, they're all sorts of walks of life, right? So I think firstly we have to disassociate wearing hijab, scarf, as if somehow that's limiting to women, because it isn't. It's a personal choice, and I believe that, you know, those who don't want to wear it have a right, and those who don't want to, that's their right as well. And that's why I've always defended the right of everybody, you know, women niqab wearing or hijab or whatever. And therefore, I've tried to deal with the stereotyping image of that, you know, the subjugated woman, and I said, no, it's not that. That, you know, this is because people's variation in their faith, how much they feel they want to dress, and a dress code is a matter for women themselves to decide. Now, in terms of, you know, you touched upon women leading. I know from my own friends, right, of my 4 friends who are doctors, 3 are consultants. And one, the only reason she's not consultant is because she's a GP, but she runs her own GP practice. Other women, as you've seen, there's myself and 2 other women in Parliament, Muslim women, coming from different backgrounds. All of us made it on our own back, or merit, as you say. All of us worked hard, you know, got engaged in the political system. And I know that in the next election there will be even more women coming. There will be, I think, 2 women, Muslim women, have already been selected in what's called pretty good seats. So we're hoping very much that the next election they will be elected as well. You know, there are women in the House of Lords. Right? There's quite a few, like Baroness Kishwa, Baroness Udin, Baroness Warsi, and some other Muslim women who are in the House of Lords, and of course women, loads of councillors. You've got Navida Akram, who was the first Muslim woman mayor in the United Kingdom, in Bradford, and of course the High Sheriff of Bristol. And you know, I can go on and on about example women. I mean, for me, Dabi, who you talked about, who's with one of the biggest law firms, the name of which just escapes me now. Norton Rose. And she is actually not just a partner, she's actually an equity partner of a firm such as Norton Rose, which is the largest firm in the whole of the world, not just UK, but in the whole of, you know, the international world. And she had the Islamic finance, and she's a lawyer by profession. And actually, she may not want to let me know, but she's actually a member of the Labour Party. So, you know, one day when she decides to give up her millions from Norton Rose, she may come and join us in the Labour Party and stand and be our candidate and hopefully come into Parliament. And you know, there's just so many, and we can go on and on about all these examples. Having said that, the other often you have, I mean, I don't know how many Muslim women have had this comment said to them by people who mean as genuine well-wishers, oh, you have a problem, don't you, sometimes with the men. You know, you are standing as an MP you are MP in a constituency which has got about 19%, 18% ethnic minority population. Most of it is Muslim communities, either from India, Pakistan, or Azad Kashmir. Some people from India who are Hindus as well. And they say, and there's a lot of mosques in Bolton, and they say, oh, gosh, very traditional conservative constituencies, you know, how do you deal with it? Are the men giving you a hard time? Did you have a problem with them? How did they allow? And I said, actually, for your information, the Muslim men who are members of my local Labour Party have never given me a hard time, and in fact have supported me right from the beginning when I tried to be a candidate, to become a candidate in the Labour Party for Bolton South East. They were there behind me, supporting me. And in fact, when I stood as a candidate in Brent East, it was then called, at the 2005 general election, the Muslim members of the Labour Party were completely 100% behind me. And even now in my election campaign, they're out there. I don't have any problem with any of the mosques or the imams. Whether in Brent or whether in Bolton, from the 2 constituencies I campaigned for, I've had no Maulanas or imams say anything critical And not only that, but they've actually all been so helpful and supportive, and the communities across. So actually, my experience is, and I say this very openly, I've had no problem from the Asian Muslim men. And I find it actually quite offensive when people do that, because actually the people who may not have thought I should be the candidate isn't the Muslim men. It was probably some of the other people who were not Muslim men who were probably, perhaps didn't want me to become the parliamentary candidate or become the MP. And therefore I think, and I feel sorry actually for Muslim men, because they get really stigmatized. They are treated as, all they do is beat their wives up and exploit young women and keep their wives hidden in the home, and they're so narrow-minded and wherever. And the level of stigmatization is completely wrong. Doesn't mean to say there are some men who fall in that category, but guess what? That's not just limited to Muslim men, It's limited to men. It's an issue of men, whether it's, you have these cases of child grooming cases you heard about, big issue, these Asian Muslim men sort of exploiting young white girls, there's a racial element, they're doing it deliberately. Well, actually, there are young Asian girls who are in a very similar situation to those young English girls as well, being exploited by different groups of people. And the thing about child and sexual abuse is actually not any particular group. It's what we call, and the Child Commissioner has said, the Deputy Commissioner, that it's a methodology. You've got some people who are rich, who go across to other parts of the world, very poor countries, to have unfortunate physical relations with young children. You have all those people on the internet, pedophiles. You have all sorts of stuff happening in prisons or things. It's not anything to do with race or religion. It's to do with men. And I think that's another thing that men are getting so stereotyped with. So actually, I feel very sorry for a lot of the men as well. But having said all that, of course, there are challenges. There are a lot of women who, alhamdulillah, have been very successful. But I think there are women, as I said, across all different groups, who still perhaps are not getting fully challenged and not being able to achieve their full potential. I wonder, for example, we've had statistics after statistics that in terms of, for example, income, we know there's disparity of income by men and women. Men still are receiving more for work they do than women. So that pay inequality in the boardroom is still there. So there are huge challenges there, but I think a lot of women are breaking them, are actually dealing with those challenges and coming through. And I foresee that future is actually very bright, and I think there's more and more going to come forward. So I don't see sort of a weak picture. I actually see a very strong and thriving. And just finally just wanted to me and a lot of women here, it comes as no surprise that women are playing these essential roles. But historically, Islamically, from the time of the Prophet ﷺ, women were playing leading roles in politics, in army, in social, in everything. And the first person to become Muslim was a woman, the Prophet's first wife. And we all know how much, he communicated and discussed things with her and how important role she was in his life. So, Islamically speaking, women have been at the heart of Islamic leadership historically, and therefore it's not something that we've got because of the 21st century. It's actually been very much part of Islamic religion and culture for 1400 years. Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Assalamu alaikum, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to everybody here, and thank you for inviting me, and thank you for carrying it forward as well. I sit here today as a Muslim, not because I was born as a Muslim from a Muslim family, but because I used to ask too many questions of my father, and he then gave me the permission to go away and ask and learn about the other religions, bless him. Maybe I didn't give him any choice, but at the end of the day, I did look at other religions, and I came back to Islam because it gave me the equality that I needed to have. And it wasn't just hearsay equality, it was actually written in the Quran as well. And this is why today I sit here as a Muslim, and as I said, not because I was born as a Muslim or from a Muslim parentage itself. Many of the things have already been said, but I'm going to go along, and these are the topics I'll be covering. Islam before and after the Prophet, peace be upon him, and then misunderstandings about Muslim and their rights and culture, customs and religion, how it's always mixed, the positive role of Muslim women and the future afterwards. And when I start this, you need to look at this, it's a journey really. You need to look at this empowerment and equality of Muslim women in terms of society as it is happening today and as it was in the past as well. Inequality and lack of empowerment is not merely a problem for Muslim women, as you said, Yasmin, but continues to be a problem for many non-Muslim women throughout the world. It's important to distinguish between some Muslim culture practice and the Western media stereotypes as well. At the time the Quran was revealed to the Prophet, peace be upon him, Arabia was largely a rural economy in a world where women were globally regarded as mere chattels, to be used, misused, or even abused by men who owned them. Burial of live female babies and slavery were both regarded not merely normal, but perfectly acceptable and honorable. Let me take you on a journey now of a 2-year-old child, a baby girl, who is taken by her father into the desert. The father then digs the grave, and because the earth falls on the father's clothes, she rubs it away. The father picks her up and buries her alive. That was pre-Islam. And it was accepted, and he walked away, and it was thought an honor to do that. With the advent of Islam, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, abolished that practice. It's currently fashionable and common for the media and feminists to use the idea of the subjugation of women as a stick with which to further demonize Islam. The Quran not merely forbade female infanticide, but actively recognized every woman's full personhood. The Quran recognizes the equality of those of faith, both men and women. It's interesting you say, Yasmin, that you feel sorry for the men, but equality is there for all of them. Today, there are sadly many states that proclaim themselves as Islamic, yet choose to practice Islam in ways that are effectively revert to the pre-Islamic and misogynistic cultural practices of using and attempting to subjugate women and children. Alhamdulillah, at the time of the revelation of the Quran, it provided and continues to provide a radically egalitarian and anti-patriarchal way for men and women to live together in society in today and has been in the past as well. It's a way that's exemplified and recorded in the Hadith, reporting the actions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, during his lifetime. Muhammad Akram Nadwi, who documented in 40 volumes and then 2,000 women scholars who were instrumental in extending the understanding of Islam and enhancing its spread across the continent following the death of the Prophet, peace be upon him. The first university in the world was founded by Fatima al-Fahiri in 959. Women in Islam played an important role in the foundations of many Islamic educational institutions through their charitable trust and also themselves as well. They were also teachers, not only learners, but also teachers. And as Yasmin has said, female education in the Islamic world was inspired by the Prophet's wives, Khadija, the first female lady to accept Islam, who was herself a successful businesswoman, and Aisha, rahmatullah alayh, a renowned hadith scholar and military leader. Some of the chains of authenticity for a number of hadiths are through the female lane of transmission, and they over time have been authenticated. Over the centuries since the death of the Prophet, peace be upon him, Islamic men have followed the examples of the Jewish and Christian communities, resulting not only in the contribution of women being effectively written out of the scholarly records, but excluding women from the decision-making position within society. Women have until recently been consistently excluded from positions of power in the management of mosques, churches, synagogues, or on Sharia councils. It was late as 1870 before the Married Women's Property Act gave British women the right that they'd been given by the Quran centuries before. British women had to wait until 1918 for the right to vote, a date long after a number of other European countries had granted them the vote. Today, Muslim women in the West potentially have the freedom to explore and develop their spirituality. Every woman born can choose to embrace Islam is on a lifelong journey. What kind of Muslim each becomes in the course of a particular journey will inevitably involve decisions. What form of Islam? Sunni, Shiite, Wahhabi, etc. What is our identity? British, Pakistani, Somali, Arabic, etc. What's the right way for her or not for her to merely express her faith, but as a Muslim, participate and contribute in both her ethnic community and wider society? There are many Muslim women who provide positive role models for Islam and here today. One of them has gone away, but there are some here today. There are numerous surahs in the Quran that clearly show that men and women are equal believers in the eyes of Allah. The strength of their piety makes them superior in Allah's eyes, not their gender. It's up to the women themselves to reclaim what the Quran gave. In this diverse and multicultural society that is Britain today, it's essential for Muslim women to be increasingly prepared to act in this way in order to undermine the pernicious untruth that Islam is a faith that subjugates its women. As long as women themselves fail to step up to the line, reclaim their right that were given to them by the revelations of the Quran and epitomized by the practices of the Prophet, peace be upon him, then the Western media will continue to falsely claim that Islam subjugates its women. For us, Muslim women, the sky is the limit. The only barrier is our mind and our lack of information. So I urge you all, please, please step up to the mark, because we can all do it collectively, even more quickly. Thank you very much for listening.
Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to be here tonight with you all, and may I thank both TVapex and GlobalNet for hosting us here today to talk about a topic and a subject that is exceptionally close to my heart, and I was exceedingly happy when I heard that today we were talking about empowerment and equality and Muslim women. Now, when I think about empowered Muslim women, the names of Aisha, Radhiyallahu anha, Khadija, Nusayba, and many others come to mind, shining examples of women who were empowered by their religion and peers to take on positions of leadership, to become beacons of inspiration to others. And hundreds of years on, their legacy still lives on with us here today. Their vision, aspirations, courage, and fearlessness in the face of adversity and critique is an inspiration for many wishing to follow their example in the modern world. So when I speak of empowerment, ladies and gentlemen, that is the empowerment that I speak of. The same empowerment that, to give an example, the suffragettes fought for, so that today we have the right to vote. The example of Nelson Mandela, who empowered both genders by giving his message of tolerance, social justice, and forgiveness to the world and to his nation, so that today we understand that the greatest leadership is the one that reconciles faiths, genders, women, communities, countries, and dreams together for the good of the people. When we fail to uphold equality, we not only let ourselves down, but indeed humanity as a whole. And we have seen this happen countless of times, and we take historical examples, and we can see that these incidences have happened both in Nazi Germany and Bosnia, just to say two. So what does it mean to say when we say Muslim empowerment and equality in the United Kingdom? To me, it means to have an open place for decision-making, for debate and discourse. It means allowing us to help others have a voice by being a platform of unity and courage. And all of this is possible because of the country we live in today, where we have the freedom and the liberty that many are still fighting for in different parts of the world. The path of realization of the importance of empowerment starts within ourselves and in our homes. And it is for this reason that we as women influence our families, neighbors, our communities, and ultimately the nations that we dwell in. It is within the values that we instill in our children, in the way we interact with each other and become living, breathing examples of the ideals that we preach, that then go on to encourage one another to progress, to become politicians, CEOs, judges, high sheriffs, chairmen of organizations, financial executives, and so on. The fact that so many of us are present here today to speak about this subject is proof of the fact of just how fundamentally important these conversations are. And on this note, I'd like to begin closing my address by talking about my own experiences having visited Palestine and Bosnia this year. Two places that equality and empowerment are still but distant dreams to some. On July the 11th, 1995, when I was just a child of 4 to 5 years old, one of the biggest genocides and ethnic cleansing after World War II took place in Europe. Thousands of Muslim men were killed, hundreds of women were raped, and millions of families were torn apart. And all because some didn't believe in the agenda of equality, and they did not believe in the agenda of empowerment or indeed the strength of women. And I listened in Srebrenica and Sarajevo as women told us, mothers told us, of the last and final moments that their sons were ripped from their arms to be shot dead on one side, and on the others, their teenage daughters were being dragged off to be raped, of how their husbands were murdered in front of them, and how they live with that reality every single day. And on the back of that, a year after, had they started up organizations where they've taken the United Nations to court. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Muslim women empowerment and equality. And we must take it upon ourselves to ensure that such instances do not happen anywhere else again, because we are strong enough now to say no, and to stand up for the rights that so many women have worked so hard for so long in order for us to achieve. And we must honor their work by saying no. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I'm glad you mentioned in your speech Nelson Mandela, because it was his memorial service today, and as I came here, I passed South Africa House and looked at the flowers and the queues of people going in to sign condolences, and it made me think that, you know, his view on life is that we should be inclusive. Whatever your race, your gender, your age, it's better to have conciliation and dialogue than it is to be adversarial. And that's something he taught us, as well as teaching us that the chauffeur and the prison warden is as important as any prime minister. And those are values which cross any gender, any race, and any age factor. And, you know, he was a great man that I think we should remember.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be here to speak alongside these young, inspiring women who have taken the opportunity to represent us in government in the UK. I thank Yasmin Qureshi for being the host, Dr. Suhail and Francis Seeley for making today possible. I'm the chair of the UK All Pakistan Women's Association and also an executive vice president of the International Alliance of Women. The UK UPWA, in short, is also an affiliate of the National Council of Women Great Britain, and these positions I hold have given me an insight towards understanding equality and empowerment for women in our world today. My family migrated from India in 1948 to Karachi, where I grew up, and was educated doing my master's in English literature. I came to the UK in 1971, just before Pakistan was divided and Bangladesh got its independence. That was a very sad time for us, and the West Pakistan government let East Pakistan down. The divisions have always been painful, very painful indeed. This last week, we have been celebrating the life of President Nelson Mandela, the man who forgave his enemies, reconciled all differences, and moved his nation forward, a man who preached equality and got it for his people. I hope that here we will always stand united and work for a fairer and just Britain. I have worked in the British civil service, in the financial services, and in property management. I have done voluntary work. But I found my niche as a fundraiser and in charity the most dear to me. It is something I have loved doing, as this was my contribution to society, to the society I lived in. As a British Pakistani woman, I wanted to work for women in Britain, and especially of Pakistani origin. There is a large community of British Pakistani women who are separated and live marginalized lives. Some of them have been here practically all their lives, and they cannot read or write. These women are called Pakistani women, even though they are British. And I think it's the responsibility of the British government to see to it that they are not in the backwaters that they are in. These women need representation, and we at the UK All Pakistan Women's Association hope to work with them and for them. I have been very impressed by the International Alliance of Women and their work for women. We organized the 36th Triennial Congress for them in Lincoln's Inn in London, which went on from the 8th to the 14th of September 2013. It was their third time here, and the topic was violence against women. In all the conferences and places that I have gone to regarding women since we started up in 2009, I am amazed that with all the progress in the world, with all that we have achieved, with all the wonderful things that you all are talking of, that the state of women's issues, violence, empowerment, etc., is at a very low ebb. We are very positive and we hope that it will go away. But when you see what's happening in Africa, when you see what's happening in Asia and third world countries, it's really not such a rosy picture. So here we were. There were delegates from 21 countries. They contributed and participated equally throughout and went back with greater awareness about women's issues. The International Alliance of Women, or the IAW, was founded in 1902. And the All Pakistan Women's Association has been an affiliate since 1949. The main aim of the IAW at that time was to get women the right to vote. There was then the president of the IAW was an American woman called Carrie Chapman Catt, who traveled for 2 years around the world from 1902 to mobilize women's organizations to join the alliance and demand their rights of equality and their right to vote. If you can think of those times, and this woman traveling from America by sea all over the world, and getting women's organization to join and fight for the vote, because women didn't have a vote. The first country to have the vote was New Zealand, and the next one was Australia. They had their first Congress in Berlin in 1904, and they adopted a charter of the international organization, which was as follows. I would like to read that because it is pertinent today as it was then, even though we have the vote. That men and women are born equally free and independent members of the human race, equally endowed with intelligence and ability, and equally entitled to the free exercise of their individual rights and liberties. That the natural relation of the sexes is that of interdependence and cooperation, and that the repression of the rights and liberty of one sex inevitably works injury to the other and hence to the whole race. that in all lands, those laws, creeds, and customs which have tended to restrict women to a position of dependence, to discourage their education, to impede the development of their natural gifts, and to subordinate their individuality have been based on false theories and have produced an artificial and an unjust relationship of the sexes in modern society. That self-government in the home and the state is the inalienable right of every normal adult, and the refusal of this right to women has resulted in social, legal, and economic injustice to them, and has also intensified the existing economic disturbances throughout the world. It continues. The government which imposes taxes and laws upon their women citizens without giving them the right of consent or dissent, which is granted to men citizens, exercises a tyranny inconsistent with just government. That the ballot is the only inalienable permanent means of defending the rights to the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in any representative form of government. Therefore, women should be vested with all political rights and privileges of electors. This was a charter over 110 years ago. By 1979, most countries had given women the right to vote. 1979. In principles, the gates to women's empowerment have been opened. They are now educated alongside the male population, and it is required for women to join the workforces for their economic empowerment, to join political parties, to contribute to governance, to work in civil society equally with men. Women need to step back to become full-time mothers and housewives at a stage in their life. They should do that. And at that point, I think they need financial support from government. Women should be paid when they are big mothers and staying at home. As the job to bring up the next generation is a very important one, and the parenting has to be a joint effort of the mother and father. Yet, it is the mother who is the primary carer. Once the children are grown up, it is essential that women return to work. I would request that programs be set up by governments for career advice and training to get women back into the workforce. The phrase ladies of leisure should be scrapped forever. As women are more than half of the population in Britain, let us take on half the responsibility of this nation. Equal rights, equal responsibilities is the motto of the IAW. There currently are 147 MPs out of 650 in Parliament, and there are only 27 MPs from the ethnic minority community, while 7% of the UK population are British Asians. Let us work to get equal representation. Let us use our vote to do that. Let us make our girls prepared and ready to be truly empowered and represent Britain and their communities. In conclusion, I would like to ask all of you present here to remember a thought I had as a mother. My 3 children were not 3 mouths to feed. They were 3 heads to think, 3 pairs of hands to work, and 3 pairs of legs to walk, and 3 people to support me in my work and beliefs. 2 of them are here, 1 is in South Africa. Thank you. Every citizen of Britain is an asset. Let us, through our governments, help them on their way forward. My organization, the UK All Pakistan Women's Association, aims to be the platform for the support of those who would like to develop their potential. We have here leaflets about our organizations and forms for people to become members or friends. Please join and support our work and visit our website for more details. I want to say thank you for listening quietly and hearing me out. It's a great opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Suhail, and thank you, Francis, and thank you, my co-speakers.
It's a pleasure to be here, indeed a privilege to have an opportunity to speak to you on a subject which is not so close to my heart. I am terrified by surrounding by so many women. And as a matter of fact, when Dr. Choktai said to me, that was 2 days ago, he said to me, you have to come. And I thought how to actually get out of it, because what I'm going to present there and what do I need to say? But nevertheless, I mean, today, after listening to our role models here today, I feel at ease and feel that, I mean, it isn't that bad that I thought. But what I'm not too sure is that, are we here to convert the converted one, or are we sending the message to other people through the converted one? That's what we have to think. So I would like to only comment, and thank you very much, Dr. Chutai, for giving me an opportunity. I would like to comment and probably ask a very simple question. What are we supposed to do after this particular? Because the role models have given us enough to prove in their own words that Islam is the religion which has got everything. So Muslim women must have an equality, and as a matter of fact, it has been proved beyond any point here that Muslim women, and I believe in that as well, have more equality than men. My wife controls the home, my secretary controls my office, and my students basically control everything if they're from the women sector. So I mean, I'm not too sure that what we are trying to do, as far as Islam is concerned, our Prophet, peace be upon him, was employed by his wife, and so he was employed by a woman to start with. So there's no doubt about it that is there. But well, ladies and gentlemen, the problem which faces me is that how do I convert people outside? How do I actually speak to those particular people who are cynic and who are going to say, what are you talking about Muslim women, equality and empowerment of Muslim women in the United Kingdom? Are they different than the other women in the United Kingdom, as a matter of fact? So we have to be very careful what we say. And we have to be very careful to keep away from the buzzwords like basic rights, fundamental rights, women rights, human rights, prisoners' rights, and you name it, and it goes on and on and on. And they are all grouped together, properly legislated in the United Kingdom, when I'm talking about United Kingdom, but 50% of them are not working. So the question here, the first question is, how do we make them work in the first instance? And you will compare it quite easily. Yasmin Qureshi said a very interesting point to me, and she said today that the image of Muslim women in the United Kingdom is not basically representative. People have got misconceptions about them. Yes, no doubt about it. But how does this differ from other women in the society as well? That's the question which we have to ask ourselves and answer that. How do we actually change the perception? And that is what we have to find out. How do we change the perception? Because the perception is there. Is it really far from the reality? Well, it was very interesting when my friend on my right said, well, we need to have better representation in the House of Commons, for example, or in the Parliament. Well, ma'am, let me tell you that up to year 2000, we had a very bad, more or less the same representation in the Parliament in Pakistan. Now, 1/3 are the members of that. So you need to learn that lesson, and parliamentarians here in this country need to learn that lesson as well from a third world country. How did we manage to have so many people in there?
Coming here tonight with the title Muslim Women and Empowerment, as a revert woman for 20 years, I actually didn't feel anything tonight, absolutely nothing. I felt that the title should have maybe been changed to maybe Asian Muslim women. I'm also from the Afro-Caribbean community, if it helps. But I've worked with the community for 18 years on ground level. So I have touched women, thousands of women right across the UK. And there was nothing in tonight for me personally, or as having ears for my other women, that was, there was nothing. So what I would suggest is if you do something like this again, that you definitely get reverts involved, because we have separate issues. We have, we are Muslim women as well, but like I said, I don't feel like I was represented here. I would ask you to definitely have a panel of people that were representing the different races as well, and different ages, and then this would then maybe represent Muslim women as a whole. Because this, for me, was unfortunately very disappointing, and I had really high hopes and great expectations. I'm happy with what you said. What next? What next, and how is this going to better us? Thank you very, very much.
Just in terms of diversity and including more communities involved, I'm actually, I'm a little disappointed that there isn't enough. I'm the only Somali, I think, I'm not sure if there's any other Somali community here, and we have a large population of Somali community in Britain, and it's a shame that no one has turned up. And I would love to see a Somali lady in a panel speaking up for the barriers that are facing the Muslim women in our community. But in terms of diversity, that's what I wanted to say. And the other point that was mentioned earlier in terms of the inability to read or write and the difficulties that that's facing Muslim women, I think that's equal when it comes to the Somali population and the Somali women community. And if there was a Somali lady representing the Muslim community in Britain, then maybe we would have reviewed it. Thank you.
I'm one of the consultants. I work in the hospital. I've been working for the NHS for over 20 years now. So I will come straight to the topic today, which is women who are Muslim women working in the United Kingdom. And I'll actually touch on that topic just to highlight for some of my friends over there who are bringing culturalism, ethnicity into it. What I would like to say is that in this country, Muslim women are really flourished very well. My religion has never been a problem for me to flourish in my career. And the women that I've seen, Muslim women of all origin, Nigerian, Somalis, Iraqis, because I come across all women who are Muslim in my daily practice of work. We don't classify each other as Pakistanis, Somalis, Africans of whatever nature and origin. We are all professionals. And to say that in this country, I think we are very lucky because we are not held back from our religion, clearly in the field that I'm working. And of course, I'm sure, as Bishop said, there are lots of exceptions and women really do need to be empowered more. I think what we need to move away, again, coming to the topic of what it is today, is moving away from diversity and equality. We're all Muslim women, and I think we need to get into the concept of representing problems around Muslim women. And yes, the ladies over there quite correctly noted that there is a little bit of more, perhaps Pakistani women here, and we could make an effort to do more, but it is not about Pakistani women here today. It is about Muslim women. And I think we need to probably take a bit more questions from all the Muslim women here who might want to bring to the forum something about just being a woman and being Muslim in the United Kingdom. Doesn't matter where you're from, what your ethnic background is, Somali, Pakistani, Nigerian, it doesn't matter. We're all Muslim women and we are in this country and we are sharing the same problems and challenges as a group.
I think all of us have an obligation as women to participate in all women's forums, regardless of our education and standing in society, which ethnic group, community we come from, where we started in the UK. Some of the Pakistani women are doing much better than the Somalian women. You have to give that because maybe they were here earlier.
That's right.
Or they had more opportunities and advantages. So the first thing we have to do is recognize ourselves and have men. I'm disappointed because there are not more men here. Because I believe in engaging men. You said something, Bashan said something about it being a complementary role. Men have a hard time too. We are their partners. We're here in this world to complement each other. And we need to work together. And I want to see more male faces in women's conferences.
Thank you very much. That's something to make note of because that's a big change from the 1970s when women's movements didn't want men as part of their movement. Now it's changed.
And I think men feel very challenged, kind of afraid to come under attack. But I think things have changed.
It has, it's changed a lot. Yes, Ms. Sheikh, you wanted to come
Right.
in.
Thank you for letting me intervene today. I'm a founder of a charity called British Community Honours Award. And the charity's aims and objectives are integration and social cohesion. Now, how was this charity born is the interesting story. I must give you that background. I came to this country in 1965 as a teacher and in Leicester. And I think I was the only Asian face at that time in Leicester. Anyway, I got very busy with my work because we had the influx of the immigrant children coming to UK in the 60s. And so Shirley Williams, who was the Minister for Education at that time, wrote to me and said, would you come and join the Select Committee on Education? And I refused to go. I said, why? Why am I going there to the Parliament? And my inspector said, Yasmin, you have to go because she's my boss, you know. And if I don't let you go during work time, she can sack me. So I got frightened. So anyway, I ended up attending the Select Committee. I didn't even know the relevance at that time, to advise the ministers. Anyway, I came here and I found all the directors and the ministers and very experienced person. And here I was like sitting in a corner, you know, I won't tell you how old I was, but very young. Anyway, the person who was sitting next to me, I asked him, I said, why have they asked me to come to this select committee? Because I don't think I can contribute anything. You know, they're all so experienced here. And I was embarrassed. Anyway, Lord Rampton was the chair of the Rampton Committee at that time. So this MP asked Lord Rampton, oh, Lord Rampton, Yasmin wants to know why is she here? And he laughed and he said, you know why you are here? I said, no, I want to know. He said, because you're the only one who's got English as a second language. Here we are, all English as our first language. Now we've got problems in our schools with children coming to our schools with English as going to be a second language. We don't know how to teach English as a second language. You've learnt English in East Africa as a second, third language. We want to know your methodologies, how you did it, or how you learnt it. So that's the background I'm coming from. Anyway, I got really engaged into this select committee for nearly 5 years. And at the end of 5 years, I was very much involved with the community, and in year 2000, the millennium year, I was awarded an MBE by Her Majesty the Queen. And of course, nobody knew me, and they suddenly saw this Muslim name's got an MBE, and all my friends started asking me, how did you get that? What did you do? Of course, they didn't know what I was doing. So I said, oh, is that so? She said, because we've never heard a Muslim woman getting an honor. This is going back 13 years. Of course, times have changed now. And I said, don't they? She said, no, we never hear that. So I did a research. I went back 15 years in year 2000 to see how many British Muslim women were awarded an honor by Her Majesty the Queen. And there were only 6 or 5. This is now going back 30 years then. And I thought, that's a bit sad. Anyway, I couldn't do very much with them. So I looked at the men then. And they were I managed to get about 20 of them. So at that time, Lord Ahmed was just appointed as a lord. And I went to him and I said, look, do you mind if I invite all these people and get together to see how they have achieved this honors? And he said, yes, that's a good idea. So it took me 2 years to get their addresses, by the way, because it was going back like 30 years. Anyway, I wrote to them and I said, would you like to come and have dinner at the House of Lords? And said, why not? So they all came and they were really quite excited, because once you get this honor, you know, you just don't know what to do with it and people forget about it. Anyway, they came and it went really well. The following year, people who got honors for that year wrote to me and said, are you going to have this event again? And I thought, why not? Let's have it. It'll be fun. So we had some new people who were... Anyway, it went on for 5 years. And what we were doing, we were re-recognizing the Muslim people who were being honored by Her Majesty the Queen. With the result, because we were recognizing that, and people became aware of the system, how it works. Now, whereas before it was like 5 in a year, we get 30 Muslims awarded her honor by the Queen. So the number has increased. Of course, the population has also increased. Now, after 6 years, I felt a bit bored with the whole thing, and I thought, no, I think I need to move, because we were being sidelined, and I didn't want people to see, oh, I'm only recognizing the Muslims only, because times have changed. So I asked Lord Ahmed, I want to add another aspect to this and give a community award in addition to the people we will recognize their honors, but I want now to start another called the Community Award, which is not going to be just the Muslims, it's going to be anybody who's working with all communities. Now we're working towards integration. We are matured now, and we realize that you can't.
Can we relate to the topic, please? The topic is Muslim women empowerment today.
I'm coming to that. Yes.
People are come here only for that topic.
Yes. Now the Muslim women, well, if you know the reason why I did this as a Muslim woman, is I realized the louder you shout, you are heard. If you don't shout, you're not heard. And I think the Muslim women don't tell what they do. And they're they work hard. They really do work hard, because that's what I was doing. Nobody knew me. And that's why I go into and find those women who nobody knows about, who work very hard. This charity now celebrates not only, well, Muslim women and other women, all Muslim from any part of the world. There's a website, and you can download the nomination form. If you know somebody who deserves, a Muslim woman or whichever woman, you can nominate them for this award. And this is my
I think what you said is really important in the sense you're talking about honours that come at state level, but you're listening to the lady at the back.
I think we need to talk about learning the language as a matter of some urgency. And not enough is being done. Not everybody is successful. No doubt there many are, but there are many that are marginalized because they cannot communicate. And I think this needs to be addressed quickly, efficiently, in an organized fashion. At the moment, ESOL provision is ad hoc. There's a bit in a church here, somebody with a textbook there, and as a result, there are hundreds of women that are marginalized. And I do feel awfully strongly about this. If anybody would like to speak to me about it, I'm happy to help in whatever capacity, because I do feel this passionately.
Okay.
What's your name?
Laila Dibelda.
Because I think everybody can contact her.
Yeah, sure. And then if you leave your contact details with us as well.
A point that you made about women that shouts the loudest are the ones that are working the hardest get to be heard. And I suppose this is my bit for me to shout loud. I work along with my colleague here. We're psychotherapists, counsellors. We're very, very underrepresented in the field of counselling and therapy. And I've started my own network called Muslim Counsellor and Psychotherapist Network, because when I trained, I didn't come across a single other Muslim, regardless of cultural background, a single other Muslim therapist in training, in my placements, where I worked. And frankly, I was quite disgusted by it. I went out for 5 years of my training, I thought, I can't be the only one. And I'm sure there are many of us here today that think, we can't be the only ones doing what we do, what we're trying to achieve. And I think it's really important that networking, supporting one another, helps us with your group to get to your position of having that group, getting awards, having these nominations. We need to work together so that we feel supported, feel that we network, give each other that help. Having founded this network, I have now over 170 international members. That's 170 Muslim brothers and sisters who work as counsellors, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists around the world. Regardless of where they are based, regardless of what level they're at, trainee, all the way up to doctors and professors, we help each other in order to get a voice, in order to be visible, in order to be represented. And I think this is what is at the core of this meeting today. It's about enabling us, growing to have a voice together. Through Global 21, I know that you guys are on LinkedIn. My network is also on LinkedIn, so please come and see me afterwards if any of you are interested, whether you're even thinking of getting into the counselling, therapy, psychology arena. We're kind of there to support each other and help each other.
Talking on Muslim women empowerment, I think the key word here is the education. Educating the men who takes the leading role in the household. In Muslim world, men is dominating, and that is a fact. To educate men, and it starts from the household where a father choosing to provide an opportunity for a daughter to go into professions like engineering, or not just a stereotype just as a doctor or a teacher, but the other male-dominating area, maybe going into the Air Force, maybe going into the Army. That is the educational level that we are talking about from the grassroots, from home. Educate men, and then they need to provide opportunities to their children and let them go into those fields, and then the opportunities should be provided by the bigger picture, by the government, where there should be an acceptance for a woman to go into their role as a Muslim woman, not just as a woman, somebody else, but I think it's the acceptance of the society as well that makes the difference for a woman to shy away from those roles. They are taking myself, I mean, I'm an aeronautical engineer, I have worked in that capacity, and my other role is I've just become a qualified teacher as well. I've worked within the two environments. I've worked with 400 male engineers around me with working as a PIA engineer, and I felt they were isolating me automatically, being a woman engineer in there, and it was harder for me to be accepted by that culture. And coming back in this country when I worked for BA, British Airways, it was more accepted, but the opportunities to travel up or go up the ladder wasn't as accessible as the men was. A role that I went for, I was competing as a supply chain manager for BA. I had to really fight tooth and nail, and I had to put a lot of effort in there to get that and then to sustain it. Whereas I could see a colleague of mine, maybe on a same level, he wasn't working as hard as I was putting in, because I'm doing all the other roles at home as well, being a mother, being a wifely duties, everything. And I'm putting extra hours to get there where I was. And a gentleman sitting next to me was getting probably more pay than I was. So we're looking at all this. We need to provide opportunities. We need to see the acceptance from the society. We need to see something done on a pay scale. But somebody needs to look into it where people, when a Muslim woman come and go for aeronautics or go for those roles, accept it.
But Shanapa, you want to get rid of the word lady of leisure. Why?
Yeah.
Oh, please.
Why?
Oh, please. Come on. I am totally into discrimination. I discriminate, I'm a feminist, and I openly say I'm a feminist, but I believe in equality. I believe in equality, and I believe the word lady of leisure, firstly, is a myth. There is no such thing as a lady of leisure. If a woman is at home, she's supervising, she's housekeeping, she's being a mother, she's being a wife, she's being a hostess, she's being all of that. Where is that lady of leisure hidden away? Just let me finish this. I am very empowered. If anybody has any doubts, consult my husband. Right. Some of the things we've talked about, all these things, women being empowered, not being empowered, the equality, the not so equality, and the justices of it, and why, like Dr. Zaid Khan said, you're converting the converted here. We're all here. We already know that. We're already talking about that. It's time to take some steps to do something. Let's talk about what we can do. We know the problems. We know the issues. We know the lady, my sister over there, I sympathize with you. I have myself worked with a couple of reverts, and I know those issues where people have converted back out of Islam, and horror of horrors, we've stood there and watched it happen and done nothing about it because our hands are bound. We can't do anything about it. We need support groups for women like that, reverts like that, not just women, but for every revert like that. We need support groups. So let's do something. Let's create a support group. I myself, at the moment, I am working to create an anti-dowry law in the UK. Some people are horrified. Why? There's no such thing. There is. Trust me, there is demands for dowry over here. Within this society of the educated, westernized, looking towards the West people, our culture in the UK is accepting of dowry from women. I am at the moment, and of course, Dr. Suhaj also knows. So do something about it. We're running a campaign to bring about an anti-dowry law in the UK, which does not exist. It is not recognized as being an issue, whereas it is one of the major issues of domestic violence in this country, which a lot of women suffer from. So let's talk about things that we can do to ensure our women are empowered. We've talked about education, we're talking about this. Let's talk about what we can do to get the equality, and not just the issues and the concerns and the problems. Oh, we've talked about it lots of times.
Issues that need to be addressed, and I think what's really wonderful for me to hear is that people are actually speaking up. And although we might be preaching to the converted are now taking a stand. And that's what we need to do. We need to realise that there's an issue, recognise it, and then do something about it, something that Tasha was just talking about, and others have mentioned also. The sister at the back, the sister over there. You know, all the things that you've mentioned are incredibly important. Now, I wish I could talk about the issues that reverts face, and I can't because I'm not a revert, and that's what I need to learn from you. This is where you need to come and tell me, this is what we're facing, or this is why we're leaving Islam, and this is why we don't feel empowered. Let's work together to overcome this obstacle. And if we're talking about Muslim women and empowerment and equality, but we're not being equal amongst ourselves, how are we going to get that message beyond our homes and our borders, and beyond our own ethnicities and religions? And these are conversations that need to start now. They should have started a long time ago, and we need to make up for lost time. I mean, if we're talking about anti-dowry laws, we're talking about hudud laws in Pakistan and different places around the world. We're talking about oppression happening on a day-to-day basis. You know, from within the workplace, where you're getting less pay but you're working harder. That isn't a form of oppression. That is a form of inequality. And if we don't address this in this chamber or in the conversations that we have outside it, are we actually making an impact? And if we're not making an impact, what is our purpose of having these conversations if we do nothing about them? And if we are to take our religion as a model of a way of life, if we are to look back, and we're talking about how Khadija was, she employed Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, if we're talking about all these amazing women who did all these amazing things, and we're looking at them, but we're just looking at them, are we really honouring them? Are we being just to ourselves? So again, I'm going to stop because I'm a woman and a politician, and if you give me a floor.
You won't make a politician if you admit that.
My point here is about change of perception, which was one of the issues that came out from the audience there. It's how the media actually portrays us and how we can change that, isn't it? We have to change ourselves as well. We have to look at ourselves and how we behave. It's our behaviour and our actions which inevitably, majority of us are their tainted way. There may be just a few who behave in the way they do, fundamentally or extremely, or the other extreme negative buzzwords that we use. But it is for us to change, and it is in the homes that we have to. Today when we leave, it is at our homes we go back to, and we have to change ourselves and our children's views as well, because changing that then cascades down to the rest of the community around us. In terms of what we do next, I feel there's already a list coming out here about the anti-dowry and the domestic violence. But I think the other one is honour killing as well. How prevalent is that? And how many actually get convicted of it, the charges? The numbers are high, but the actual people going into jail or suffering for it, it's very little, very low. So we need to be focusing on those issues as well from my end. And the other thing is, it's been a pleasure to hear such vocal, robust views coming forward, and I applaud you all for that. And let's keep this momentous, this energy going as well. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yes. I listen to you, and I'm very proud of the fact that you're an engineer and you worked in BI and worked in British Airways. The reason that you suffer these issues is because there are not enough women doing these jobs. We went to the mosque, and we had gone to a wedding in a mosque, and we walked out, and there were very, very abusive men who saw us dressed up in the mosque at the wedding. And we walked out of there, and my cousin said to me, that's why you should not come here. I said, no, that is why we should come here in greater numbers. Because we get this because we are singled out. So the thing that women have to do, what I said is, please step up, please move out, please be here. You all said, what a wonderful thing to have so many women in the audience. Well, I should be congratulated because a lot of them have come from the UK as well. But interestingly, I have been attending meetings and conferences and talks. Do you know there are 5 or 10% women, the rest of them are men. And I have so many times asked the men that please bring your wives, please bring your daughters, please bring your sisters. Asma Jahangir spoke at the Young Newspaper Conference, and she said, please bring women to invite women. And there weren't any women. So it is our responsibility as women to step up, to inspire, to get our women involved. Well, and thing I want to say to the two, one is the Ravat and the Somalian lady who was here. It was very nice to see you. I was a governor in a school called South Camden where there was a big, huge Somali community. And I really wanted to have that interaction with them. But it didn't, I mean, the meeting and all did not bring that about. We need to, here we have a very strong Pakistani presence, but I really think that we need to have you, we need to have other women of the Islamic faith come forward and join us. The other thing that I feel quite a little upset about is that we should really, we are Muslims. We embrace our religion, we follow our religion, but what we want to talk about is as British women in this country. And nobody comes up, I'm a Christian woman, I'm a Jewish woman. I mean, why are we going on about this? We know what our faith is. We love it, we follow it. You know, why don't we see, remove the divisions and become one? We are in this country long enough. We're British women and we want the rights and we want to stand up with them and we want to achieve with them and be as empowered as they are. And I think that is something that all of you are. You're British women. Your faith, where you came from, is all there. It's a part of your culture, it's a part of your heritage. Keep it with you. Take it forward. And people all realize when they see Muslims as they behave in their generosity and their hospitality, that is their culture. That is where they come from. That's fine. And we have to think, we are very lucky that we're in this country and we have these opportunities. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to thank all the speakers who spoke, everyone from the floor, because it's been a great and illuminating meeting. Where do we go from here? We will make sure this goes out. I mean, for us in Global Net, anyhow, I know that Sahel obviously works with the Pakistani community a great deal, but for us in Global Net, this is one of the first events that in which we've got so many people from the Muslim community to come to the meeting that, for me, this is a major success. But of course, every major success is inadequate. There is always inadequacies, and they've been mentioned from the floor. You mentioned them. They are inadequacies, and we have to deal with them. One of the things I've learned today is, of course, there isn't a Muslim community. Of course, there is generically, but there are Muslim communities. There are different communities, and they all have different problems, and we have to, I think, deal with that, and that's something we need to take on board and think about how we can address it. The other thing is we'll get some of this message out through our social networks. Sahel is going to make sure that this gets out on his own channel, Internet TV. We'll put it out on Facebook and so on, and we'll try and develop other meetings. And in Global Net, what we have started doing around, and we cover a whole series of different meetings, from climate change to this, from housing to democracy in the 21st century. What we're trying to do now is develop theme groups who develop meetings of their own. And we've got one on belonging and identity, cross-faith, one on sharing and fair trade, one on change in Africa. And we've got someone who is considering starting a theme group on empowerment in women, not Muslim women, not Christian women, because you're right, I mean, no one talks about, the disadvantage of Christian women, but empowerment of women. And if she wants to do that, and if there's anyone interested, then please let me know and I'll put you in touch with her, and then we can start getting regular meetings and plan action as a result of that. So there is some follow-up activity that can take place. And because we're also beginning to do webinars with MPs, and we have meetings in the House of Commons very often as today with MPs. If any of you would like us to try and address a problem there, use a webinar, for example, to engage in MPs, let me know, and we'll try and work on that as well. So there's a lot of work to do, and this is just the beginning, but it was a very, very good beginning, despite all the inadequacies, and it's only because inadequacies that you make a better future and more success later on. So I want to thank everyone for taking part in this. It's been fantastic. I don't know if you want to say anything, Sahel, but it's been good.
I think it's wonderful presence, and I accept your criticism. Thank you very much for pointing this out. We really appreciate that. We'll try harder to get more diversity here, and his organization says let's celebrate diversity, and TVapex also follows that. Dr. Zedju Khan actually pointed to right action, what to do next. I think we need to pick up the paradox. In one of the Arab countries, for instance, they make the compulsion of man to buy a house for a woman when they marry, but they don't let women drive. What is this? Pick up the paradox around you, highlight it, bring it forward in such meetings, and talk about it. And again, I would say that I think the sad part is that we stay quiet when we see discrepancies, problems. We say, well, I'm fine, or it doesn't affect me, or I've solved my problems. Let's talk about it and make sure these forums are for you. And thank you very much. I really appreciate everybody here.
Yeah.
Thank you
Okay,
again.
and